Recession. Caleb Maupin, why, however, does the US House of Representatives vote to cut food stamps to avoid defense reductions? What is the reason for what some may be calling the military mania in the United States?
Well, it's very simple. We have a system in the United States which is based on profits. Corporations, bankers, their goal is to make more and more profits for themselves. And whenever people are suffering, this is what they call in financial terms or in economic theory, they call this an externality. Human suffering is an externality. If the environment is destroyed, that is an externality. If you have to push a government to go to war and commit crimes and kill people, that's an externality. Because all that gets calculated in is the profits, the profit margin. And the ruling class and the bankers and the corporation in this country, they want to cut the food stamps because that's not their priority. This is an economic time of suffering, and what they need is they need to keep their military machine rolling. They need to continue to come down hard on the people of the world, beat them down, and extract as much profits as they can to make up for their losses. But they don't care about the suffering people are going through. The fact that thousands and hundreds of thousands of youth are entering the job market every day, only to face unemployment, only to face the chance of never even having a decent paying job, let alone getting laid off from one. The fact that that's going on isn't a concern to them because they have all the wealth and they have all the power, and the only hope is the millions and millions of youth who are going out to oppose them. I'm in Chicago for the next brief period, and we'll be here to demonstrate against NATO, the armed wing of the global 1%. The 1% that is causing wars all around the world for their profits. And so I'm very excited about the situation, and hopefully we're going to see some real change, because May Day was a great awakening. All across the U.S., millions of people marched. You know, every day the movement is growing stronger.
Right. So, Caleb, there you're, of course, bringing the argument of the Occupy protesters. I'd like to... We heard Defense Secretary Leon Panetta saying that this package by the Republicans is not going to be approved because, in his words, it's not balanced, it's not fair. If Leon Panetta himself is opposing it, why is it even proposed at the House?
Well, that's a very, very good point, because I believe, you know, if you look throughout, you know, the entire history of George W. Bush and when the Republicans controlled both houses of Congress, at no point was it ever discussed, and at no point did public sector unions have to fight for the right to exist. But now we're in a situation where the Democrats control both the presidency, the executive branch, many key governorships, yet all over the United States, public sector unions are being destroyed and threatened, and laws are being proposed to try and block public sector workers from organizing, even though the Democratic Party campaigned on a platform of supporting public sector unions. It was the Obama administration that had a debt ceiling crisis and had a super committee that was supposed to talk about spending. Well, we all know where the problem with spending is. The problem with spending is in the Pentagon. Millions and millions and billions every year are spent on the military, yet the Democrats and the Republicans are arguing just about how much to cut the social services people depend on. How much to cut? Should we cut a little more, a little less? That's the terms of the debate. At no point in the debate is anyone sticking up for the 99% and saying, we didn't cause this crisis. This crisis is caused by the greatest terrorists in the world, the 1%, those who own the banks, the factories, and the industries. No one is speaking up for them. No one is speaking up for them, and no one is speaking up for the people around the third world and around the world that are fighting against the imperialists and the bankers and the corporations that are trying to dominate their countries. So all over the world, the people are rising up, and a global movement is forming. And the only hope the 99% in the U.S. has is if they can continue to ally with the people around the world that are fighting the imperialists. If they really want to oppose the 1% of the bankers, they need to oppose the ruling elites in the United States, and they need to oppose their wars around the world.
Right, so you say, and briefly if you can, tell us how this is going to affect the elections. How is the Occupy movement going to change the voter, participation, who they vote for in elections?
Well, I think many people in the United States are beginning to doubt whether the Democrats and the Republicans really speak in their interest. And instead, they're looking around the world and they're taking inspiration from people like the people of Cuba, who rose up and kicked the banks and the corporations out of their country and now live on average longer than any other people in Latin America. They're taking inspiration from people all over the world who are fighting against imperialism, from the Palestinian people, which have refused to surrender and refused to give in, from people all over Africa who have fought imperialism, and now we're fighting imperialism in its homeland. And people are taking great inspiration from this. They're very excited, and they're looking forward to the day when not only will we tax the rich, but we'll get rid of them to begin with, because all of the money in their banks was money produced by labor of the 99%. But the 1% owns it because they own the world. Well, it's time the people who built the world own the world. And that's what Occupy Wall Street and millions of people are fighting for, and that's what we're going to see in the future.
Live in Chicago, Caleb Maupin with the International Action Center there. Thank you.